The breaking news of the day: Baylor lands a 5-star in the 2025 class, Tounde Yessoufou from California. He comes in as a top 20 player in both the ESPN and On3 rankings and 247 rankings as well. Absolutely one of the best players in this 2025 class. He comes from California via West Africa, from Benin originally. And we know how well Scott Drew does with players internationally, especially those who come from the continent of Africa. But Yessoufou has been in California for his high school years and then some. Again, one of the top recruits in this 2025 class, choosing Baylor over Arizona State, Big 12 rival, and USC, which obviously has a bit of a boost with the Musman, Eric Musselman, out there at the helm. 247 has him as a composite 5-star in the number 3 small forward in America and number 15 prospect overall, standing at 6'6" and 210 pounds. Yeah, he's a big kid, and plays above that height as well. You know, he plays some power forward at the high school level. He's obviously not going to be able to really do that at 6'6", but absolutely a wing piece and a guy who could be teaming up with Jason Asamoah if Asamoah does not enter his name into the draft this year, as he starts his freshman season. So you could have 2 real high-level wings, plus whatever else Scott Drew is going to bring in this 2025 class. But we did hear from Tounde Yessoufou, talked to On3 about his selection. He said, quote, "I selected Scott Drew because he seems authentic. While other schools had their merits, I trust my instincts, and his track record speaks for itself. He's been at Baylor for over 23 years, which means a lot to me. He knows what it takes to be a winner and a champion. Watching their practice showed me how much trust he has in his players, pushing them to reach their full potential." Obviously, a lot in there. You know, he sees that there's a national championship banner from 2021 and obviously knows about the players who have come in, especially recently, and have gone to the league. You know, Jacoby Walter, Yves Misi, Keontae George, VJ Edgecombe definitely on that train. Top 10 picks in Jeremy Sohan and Davion Mitchell. It's becoming a tough program to say no to. You know, Scott Drew's track record, like Tounde said, you know, it speaks for itself. And you see the championships and the guys who played in the NBA. And now you see some grade A college basketball facilities and an awesome home court advantage all of a sudden with the Foster Pavilion. And the Bears are all moved in there to the Foster Pavilion. It's finished. They've done the full second ribbon cutting of, hey, we're open and ready for business. And it is a really tough program to say no to. And they've also got their money right. You know, you look at Musselman at USC. That's a great sell. You know, USC, Southern California, LA. You know, you can have LeBron pulling up to your games. And by the way, Musselman just got in there, so he's definitely got a nice little bump in the NIL space that he can throw around out there. But you come on down to Waco, Texas. You come see us beat up on Tarleton on the football field like Tounde saw. And then you see the players that are on this team, the coaching staff that has come through here, the facilities and the environment that you're going to be playing in, and the results of all of that in terms of championships and NBA, it's a tough one to turn down. Scott Drew is proving year after year why it is a tough one to turn down. I did want to go over the scouting report a little bit on Tounde Yessoufou. I've heard some people comparing him to Mark Vital, and there's some yes and some no from what I saw. He's a guy who is scoring in the 20s, like 25, 27 points a game in high school, which is a big number. He doesn't play at one of the elite prep schools in California, but I'm willing to overlook that because I'm a big high school basketball fan. As much as all these top prospects are going to, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 programs that play national schedules, it's refreshing to see someone who's not doing that and still growing in their game. And so Yessoufou is a guy who I think there's a little bit of polish left to be had in terms of his offensive game. I think he can get better and will need some work at the college level, but he comes in here as a big body, an athletic guy who can still score, I think, in double figures at the college level. in year one, but a guy whose defensive upside is humongous. That's where the Mark Vital comparisons come in terms of a guy who is gritty. Again, plays above his size. The way we're going to see with Norchad Omier at center this year, I think you can see that with Yessoufou at the forward position next year. And Adam Finkelstein wrote down his scouting report of him, one of the national guys for 247. He called him a physical specimen, long, strong, in a chiseled frame, a relentless competitor, there we go, who plays with a constantly high motor, one of the most consistently productive players in the class, not because of just because of the physical tools, but continuing to develop his skill set, diversify his attack. Now, I'm going to read pretty much all of this because it's really insightful. Initially, Yessoufou did his damage from the mid-range and in, made his living in the mid-post, but more recently, we've seen his game extend away from the basket. Now, that's a great thing to hear as a college basketball fan because you know that's where the game is going anyway, especially for a guy at 6'5", 6'6". He's not 7 feet tall. More capable of making open rhythm threes, and ranked in the 85th percentile in shooting off the dribble during that EYBL tournament. Developed good footwork, learned how to initiate contact, create space for pull-ups, and can finish at the rim. Plenty of room for future development. His handle remains a work in progress. That's going to be a big-time one for him to get into that lottery of the NBA draft as a wing guy. That's something that will need to develop in his time in college, however short that may be. He says, while the shooting percentages are very high, 50% field goal, 80% free throw, he'll need to learn to get to his spots more efficiently. He wants to score on every touch. He could have a tendency to stop the ball from moving and force tough shots at times. Now, that sounds like Mark Vital. Obviously, a player who developed into a super key player on a national championship team. But those of you who were there and watching him as a freshman, he just tried to dunk everything because he was such an athletic player. But defensively, his length, strength, and motor are all major assets, even if he may be a bit tight in his hips. He has the versatility to defend multiple positions, being especially switchable up the lineup, is very verbal, and has a good wing rebounder. Now, that is all good stuff. I love that. And we kind of saw it last night with some of the tweets of the Scott Drew gifts. It was like, okay, Tounde Yessoufou. And again, that track record with international players, especially ones coming from Africa initially, like Scott Drew is great at developing those international players, both at the college level and for their draft stock. I mean, you just go up and down the list. And by the way, Scott Drew, it feels like he's never done. Not done. He's got Koa Pete coming in at the end of the month. He has got AJ DeBonsa visiting in the next week or two. That's the number one prospect in this class, Brockton, Massachusetts' own AJ DeBonsa. So there are still some big-time players that are coming in this 2025 class to come see what Scott Drew's program is all about. And boy, golly, could they be overstocked with talent if not both of those guys committing by the end of this month here, or the guys we're visiting before the end of this month in DeBonsa and Koa Pete. Man, this is very good. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. We really appreciate that. And if you want to keep up to date on all the Baylor sports news, be sure to give us a like and ring the notification bell, because we are your first listen today and every day. We are your exclusive home for nothing but Baylor sports content 5 days a week that's not coming straight from the university. Be sure to follow us here on YouTube and also wherever you get your podcasts, and on Twitter as well at Locked On Baylor. Thanks so much again. Have a good one. And sick 'em.